Hello everyone and welcome back to the Rachelle Anne Miller YouTube channel. Today I'm featuring the animal number 6 owls on a clean and simple birthday card. I decided to print this image onto Translucite Perfect coloring paper and already die-cut it using the basic rectangles from Mama Elephant. Any A2 size die would do, or if you're really good at trimming things size-wise yourself, you can always trim it to an A2 size panel to get this. Now these basic rectangles give these stitching details, and I just prefer keeping that stitching detail wide to have a small border, so I am covering that up with my purple tape. I only need these sides, not the top, because I'm going to have a little bit of a fade out into that white area on the top using these two distress inks, Abandoned Coral and Dried Marigold. I love this combination. It's a really warm, bright combination, but really soft at the same time. It's not in your face red and not in your face orange. It's just a perfect mix in my opinion. So I decided to start blending with this. I just wanted to try it out whether I needed a mask or not, and depending on how far I was gonna go with the distress inks, I was not going to need any masking. So if by chance I just have a little bit of an overlap with my ink blending and then number 6 or the leaves, I'm not worried about it since I am trying to have a fade out into that white. My markers will be dark enough for this. If you're afraid about it or you're unsure about it, or depending on how you want to blend, you can always do a mask. I also think that if you would die cut this image out on the lower side of the panel, that you could do a lovely faded background same way, but just on top if you want to. So that is the ink blending. Now let's start on the coloring. As I'm going to keep it as clean and simple as possible, I will keep this coloring quite simple as well. For me, that means that I will be using same colors all over. You can give all of the birds other colors. I'm going to keep them quite the same. The big ones will have it a bit darker than the tiny ones, but still the combination that I will use will overlap completely. And that for me works to keep it clean and simple. About this branch, I wanted to have it some sort of a wood look, and so I just drew in a few lines. There is no specific logic in it. I just did something and I went over it with a darker marker here because I just found that it wasn't dark enough with the initial markers that I started using. So once I have a few lines scribbled inside of this image, I'm just using the second marker and I continue those lines, I go around it, and that's just how I build it up. You don't need to add any additional lines if you don't want to. I don't do it every time either, but from time to time I think it's a fun accent on the wood that you might have on your image. There can also be other images where this applies to. Concerning the combinations, if you want to revisit them, you can always look in the description box here as well as on my blog post where I'm listing all of the combinations for the images that I'm coloring here today. But it is going to be really simple. There aren't a lot of different combos. I am adding the same leaf colors. I am mostly using the same markers for the owls. I actually will have an overlap. For the small owls, I have 3 markers, for the big one 3, and 2 of them are exactly the same. It's just a lighter one for the tiny ones and a darker one on top for the bigger ones. So that I would have a little bit of a difference in between them, but not too much. So here I'm just coloring the leaves. I just add 1, 2 layers, 3 if I need to. It most of the time depends on the size of the images or the blend. Mostly when I have really small images, I have enough with 1 layer. But from time to time I just need a better blend, so I add a second one. For the sizes of the owls, normally I use 2, but from time to time even 1 is enough, and sometimes I will need 3. It all depends a little bit on the markers that I'm using, the combinations, but also the size really. So I just keep going here, a second layer. It was really sweet, the first layer, but I just needed a bit more of dimension, a bit more of shadowing, and therefore I just went on a second time, starting with my darkest, working my way through my lightest, because that's how I color with my Copic markers. But if you prefer coloring in another order, that's perfectly fine. There are many ways to color with your alcohol markers. It's all fine as long as you're having fun and as long as you're liking whatever you're creating. That's all that matters. Also, another thing that is really handy whenever you're reusing colors like I'm doing is that you can color your images all at once that have the same combinations. In the past, I tended to color per image, and that's definitely an option. But whenever I can, if I have small images with all the same markers, like these tiny ones, for example, if I need to lay down that one marker every 2 seconds and pick up another one and then repeating that one 4 times, I think I would go mad. So therefore, it's really handy in this case. Really tiny owls. It works perfectly like this. So a second layer as well here, not too much neither, because it's really tiny, so even a second layer isn't taking a lot of time. That's really handy. And then we will color those tiny areas, and that's 6. And then this card is almost finished. It went really quickly. Although I did a bit of blending, it really went quickly. Next, we are going to add a few tiny details here with yellow red 12. It's a really soft color, and as these parts of the images are really small, I'm not adding two markers, it would be a bit crazy. I went on it 2 times, however, because it's a really soft color, and sometimes when you add a second layer it just darkens it a tiny bit. So that's what I did here, and then I'm going to add some teals as my contrasting color with the orange reddish background that we have. So just some BGs, BG 49, 23 and BG 11. And I will use the same combination on the number 6 as well. For the number 6, I decided to let it appear a bit more rounded by starting with my darkest marker slightly with a slight sliver in between actually the number itself and that marker. And then later on I will fill that up with a lighter marker and sort of try to have it appear rounded. Now there where there is an overlap with an image, with an owl in this case, I am adding a little bit of shadowing as well, and then on this part of the number again a tiny sliver in between. And then also something, because I wanted it to be rounded and I want my shadows to be on the left side of this number, I'm not going all the way around the centered part with that sliver. I will now just start flicking with my second marker and just build up the colors from there, going a bit further each time than my first marker. And that's how I am filling in that number completely with blues, taking my time there wherever there is another image really close. Because I don't want my teal to go inside of an area of an owl or a leaf, so I'm just taking my time. There is no rush here, and I know that it looks really quickly or quick, but it's sped up quite a bit. So really take your time, have a bit of fun. Other colors can work as well, of course. There are so many gorgeous combinations. I just thought that with the orange that it would be a nice contrasting color here, but if you want to keep it a bit more monochrome, you can also do something like your background that you did. There are tons of possibilities to recreate this card in a fun way without having to repeat yourself too much, which is something that I tend to do if I need another card and I really love a design or a composition that I had. I tend to create it in another color combo so that I have another card, however, because I just don't like repeating. I'm not a machine, but that's just personal preference, but I don't do bulk. I don't do the same cards ever. they are all one of a kind, you know. So here I'm almost done. My teals are getting a bit dry here. I just moved, so by doing this voiceover, it reminds me that I need to refill some markers. It's something that I tend to just postpone because I don't like doing that. I don't like cleaning my markers. It takes so much time. It's worth it, but it takes just so much time, and I just want to craft in my free time. So yeah, but I need to do it. I just realized that. So I'm just making sure that wherever my darkest marker was just a bit faded, that I just added a bit more. Again, if you're unsure that your paper can handle all of the layers, just heat set it with your heat gun, or let your paper rest a little bit and then return to your image. That's something that works to prevent it from going outside of the lines. Yeah, that can be handy. So that is the coloring, actually, a few details here and there, and then it's time to figure out the sentiment. It's a number 6. I take them for birthdays, but you can also do it like 6 months. It's something that is done for like little babies. So if you want to showcase the amount of months that your baby is, you can do that. Or if you have a friend that just got a baby, I think they would love it, to just have these tiny cards where they can show like the progress of that tiny baby, and then maybe put it in an album. I think that would be really lovely if ever that day comes. So I'm going to white heat emboss this sentiment. This way I have the white from the upper half of my card that returns in that ink blended area. And then I will also embellish this card with some white hearts. So everything will return. It's a really, really simple card, as I mentioned. And somehow I think that this balances the card out, that I have more white as well included in that orange pinkish ink blended background. So I'm just going to adhere this panel on a card base, therefore I'm using an adhesive roller. That's my preferred way to add my panels on top of card bases. And then I will add white hearts from Pretty Pink Posh. On top, these are heart sprinkles, my favorite embellishments. I think you can use them on every card, truly. They are there as well in different colors, which also makes it a fun way to add embellishments. But here, to keep it simple, white is the way to go for me. So I add a few on the bottom, a few on top. I'm trying somehow to place them in a triangular kind of position, which is something that really works well if you are doubting about composition on the cards or anything like that. An irregular triangle is the way to go, if you ask me. So like here you have these 3 corners. I just like that, and if I can, I have an uneven number of embellishments, which I have here as well. I have 5 of them. And then once they are adhered, I decided to go a bit crazy, and I added glossy accents on top of that 6 completely, which wasn't really easy because the big owl there is overlapping quite a lot. And so I had to avoid going inside of that owl, but I took my time again. And something that you just saw me doing is also really handy. Whenever I'm using glossy accents, I tend to close my card by adding a bit of purple tape or another not too sticky tape on the inside of my card, so that it is just flat while adding glossy accents, because otherwise that glossy accents can like run towards one of the sides, on mostly the left side when it's open, and I don't want them. I want it to be even on top of this card. And then once I added the glossy accents on top of the 6 completely, this card is finished. It's a really simple card, but I think with the color that it has quite a lot of punch, and that is something that works for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and of course that you like the end result, that you got inspired in a way. If you're interested in these animal numbers, there are 10 of them. They are all gorgeous and really fun to give to someone tiny. They adore these images from Rachelle Anne Miller. So I hope that you will try them out as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. I truly appreciate you all being here, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!